Have you ever put something on that technically fits, but something about it just feels off? That feeling is what I want to talk about today, because for the longest time, I felt like my body was just really difficult to dress, and you may feel that same way too. I want to talk about a time when I've looked at purchasing the right pieces, but they have been so wrong for me and my body personally. So let's talk about the classic button-up menswear inspired dress shirt. It tends to be very straight cut. It doesn't really flatter curves. You know the one. It's on many must-have top 10 capsule wardrobe lists. But for me, this piece is far too classic and doesn't work with my proportions whatsoever. It's just not flattering on my body shape, and I typically look like I am wearing something that is far too big for my frame, even if it's tucked in, because it's just not cut for my proportions. I'm 5'5". I have a long torso, short legs, wide hips, and a narrow waist, and fairly proportionate shoulders. So I'm quite curvy, and that type of silhouette is just too straight, too classic, and too linear for my body. The same goes for a classic straight cut t-shirt or even a classic straight pair of Levi's jeans. What I eventually realized is that my body isn't necessarily that difficult to fit, and the clothes that I just mentioned aren't bad clothes. They are great for certain people that have a straighter body, and they also have different proportions, more classic proportions than I would have. Finding clothes that are complementary for you are all about shape. It's about matching the shape of your body to the shape of the clothes. So today we're going to be talking all about lines and silhouettes, and how to start noticing when an outfit is working with you instead of against you. I'll be referencing the Kibbe system today, but in a very grounded way, especially speaking about yin and yang and what that's all about, but not necessarily using it to type people into an archetype, just something to be aware of when you're looking at pieces and how they look on your body. So we're gonna do a quick exercise right now, and I always love to start an exercise with a breath just to feel a little bit more grounded. So we're gonna close our eyes and we're going to take one breath and exhale, and another deep breath and exhale, and one more for good measure. And exhale. And what we're going to do without judgment is we're just going to notice what we're wearing now and take a look at the shape. So is the shape fitted, linear, sharp, rounded, voluminous? Does it have asymmetry to it, or is it symmetrical? So we can use this top that I'm wearing right now. This blouse is from Damson Matter, and I absolutely love it. But the reason that this looks flattering and not completely over the top on my body is because it's really emphasizing my curves and the way that I'm shaped. Because I have a lot of yin in my body, I'm a yin-yang mix because I'm a soft gamine, I am able to wear a lot of curved, rounded shapes as long as they stay trim in certain areas. So where this is trim is, you can see it's a little bit more fitted through the bust, and there's some detailing here at the bust. The neckline is quite trim and kind of tight to the neck. It also is trim at the end of the sleeves, and it's actually quite fitted. So it makes the voluminous piece not too wide on my body, even though it is quite full. I have ties at the waist, so the waist is a little bit more fitted. And then we have the peplum, which is cut in a circle, and it just falls over my wider hip. So this is an example of me really using my frame to an advantage and kind of taking it to a slightly more avant-garde level, but I wanted to show this specific garment because it's really emphasizing what I'm talking about here today. The whole entry point to being able to use Kibbe's system in a way that's going to help you dress the way that you want and to project your best self into the world is really to figure out what the clothes are doing on your body. So take a minute to look at one or more of the pieces that you're wearing today and just analyze how it's working or fighting with your body. And I would love if you could share in the comment how you analyzed your piece and how it's making you feel. When people hear about yin and yang as a personal styling system, they often think that it's mystical or overly complicated, but it's actually fairly simple to distill down and use for more practical purposes when you're getting dressed or when you're looking for new pieces to incorporate into your wardrobe. There's really two things that you're looking at. So some clothes have a crisp, structured energy. That's yang. And some clothes have a soft, rounded energy. That's yin. Yang is the more structured side. So think sharp blazers, pointed shoes, a pencil skirt, a boxy square bag. It's straight lines, it's angles, it's tailoring, it's elongation. Whereas yin is that softer side. So think curves, drape, roundness, compact shapes rather than oversized shapes, gathered fabric, puff sleeves, shirring, a soft cardigan. Those would be the yin elements. Every person is going to have some combination of yin and yang lines in their body. And when you're thinking about yang, you're going to think elongation, so that's height. You're going to think about angularity. And an example of that is my nose is quite yang. It's structured, but my cheeks are very yin. I have a slightly wider cheek. It's rounder and softer. And I have very yin eyes. They're quite large and round. So everybody's going to have some mix. Yin people tend to be a little bit more compact and they tend to have more curves, so more soft round shapes, whereas yang people are going to have less curves and will be a little bit more angular in many of their shapes. But because this is a mix, you're going to find different elements on different people and it's going to present itself in a different way. And that's why it's fun to dress different body shapes, and that's what really makes us all so unique. Clothing has its own kind of shape language, and when that shape language echoes the shape language of your body, you are going to look spectacular and feel really great in your clothing. I'd say the first time that I really started to get into this was a few years after I left fashion school. I was really enamored with the Kibbe world when I first had heard about him. He was really starting to blow up on the internet, even though his initial book I think was either from the late 80s or the early 90s, and people were really getting into his typing system. When I had looked into it, I realized that some of the pieces that I was wearing were not the most flattering for me. So because I have a long torso, I kept thinking that I needed to wear elongated shapes. But actually what works best for me and is most flattering is if I wear a high-waisted pair of pants and actually a shorter top, which was the complete opposite of what I had been doing for years. And once I changed that up and kind of flipped it the other way, I was like, wow, my clothes are much more, objectively flattering on my body. There wasn't anything wrong with the clothes that I was wearing, and I often looked very stylish, but they were sometimes fighting with my body type a little bit. And now I find I'm having a lot more ease ways since I've been following some of the recommendations for my proportions and my body. Another thing that was kind of mind-blowing for me was wearing a slightly more cropped pant. I mentioned earlier that my legs are fairly short, so I've got a fuller thigh and then very narrow ankles, so it makes sense that I would wear a shorter length pant that tapers. I had been wearing super skinny jeans because they were in for a while, or a super wide leg pant, and now I find that it's actually something a little bit in between that works best for me. And the barrel shaped pants that are curved at the top and taper at the ankle, and they're a little bit cropped, look so much better on me. They're incredibly flattering, not to mention comfortable to wear because they actually mirror exactly my body shape. So this was incredibly helpful for me and really changed the way that I dress for the better. And on top of that, I'm so much more comfortable in what I wear now. And I've been able to create somewhat of a uniform for myself in terms of, okay, I know these things look great, so I tend to buy very similar silhouettes, even if the pieces may have different types of emphasis, because I know that I'm going to wear those pieces and I'm going to be very comfortable in them and I'm going to look great in them. Here's where I think Kibbe and how this archetyping system is kind of misunderstood online. It's often treated like an identity, and it can make some people feel like they are really boxed in. You can wear only this and you can't wear that. Often the advice I see for soft gamines, especially from his initial previous book, is that nothing oversized ever. Always have trim, neat, more fitted pieces. But that's not what's been in style over the past several years. Slightly oversized shapes have been ubiquitous. And also, it's fun to play with that tension. I often do wear oversized shapes with intention. So a very voluminous skirt with a very fitted tank and then maybe a cropped, more trim jacket. And because of my proportions, the voluminous skirt looks very avant-garde and edgy on me, whereas maybe on somebody with more height, it's going to look a little bit less dramatic. So once you kind of learn this system, you can play with those visual tensions to create more interest. So for me, I need a blend of a little bit of structure and a little bit of softness, and I don't need to be afraid of different shapes. And you can look at in your closet and figure out, what are my clothes doing and which types of fabrics are really aligned with the line and shape I have, and holding that shape or softening that shape depending on what works best for you. The key takeaway here is figure out which silhouettes work for your body type and incorporate more of those into your closet. Waist emphasis can be such a powerful tool for anybody that has a fairly large differential between either their waist and their hip or their waist and their bust. Anybody that goes like this in at the waist could likely benefit from emphasizing that waist a little bit more. That's why sometimes really pretty dresses, especially that don't have waist emphasis, are looking somehow off on certain people, or they're making them look wider than they are. And sometimes the solution for that can just be a waist belt on a dress, as long as the rest of the dress is fitting more proportionally. One of the other things I learned when I started thinking more about silhouette, shape, yin and yang, is that details really matter. And this isn't about maximalism, because even if you're a minimalist, you can use details to play to your advantage when also wanting to play with proportion and silhouette. I do play within kind of minimalist shapes sometimes, but I'm always ensuring that I'm overlaying more detailed pieces with those because they just tend to look a little bit more interesting on me. I recently got a new belt from Cezanne. I really love that the buckle looks like a gold nugget. It kind of catches the eye. It's a very small belt, but this one detail just makes it a little bit more interesting, and therefore any outfit that I'm wearing, even one of my more uniform barrel pants, I can put this belt on and it just makes the outfit look a little bit more quirky, a little bit different, because it's not quite what you would expect from a standard belt. I also really like pin tucks or little lace insets, but from a distance, the texture or the silhouette just looks a little bit interesting versus every single element of what I'm wearing being incredibly detailed and over the top. Why don't you take a look at your favorite top or maybe a favorite jacket and look at those details and figure out what details you really love about it and then what details make it feel like you. I think that's definitely information that's worth having and using for future investments. What I want to leave you with is that getting dressed and cultivating your personal style should have some ease to it. It should not be a battle. So I'll leave you with that, and I want to thank you so much for joining me. Please like and subscribe if you want more content, and I cannot wait to speak to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.